Hey there, it's Carly with the Expat Focus podcast. What was your biggest struggle when you moved to your new country? For Melanie Aronson, an American in Sweden, it was overcoming this unexpectedly deep sense of loneliness. She felt it so strongly, she decided to make a friend-finding app called Panion to help others who were feeling the same way she was. Keep listening to hear all about Panion and Melanie's experiences in Sweden. You've lived abroad a few times in your life. Tell me about what led you to move to Sweden.
Yeah, so I have lived in Spain and Italy and in the Middle East long term, and then a few other countries for short periods of time. And honestly, I had never thought about moving to any Nordic country. I like sun, and I've always liked kind of Mediterranean life. But I ended up in Sweden half for love and half for a film project that I was documenting about my love story. So it's like a very long story, but I ended up applying for a Fulbright scholarship to make a documentary in Sweden related to integration, and it was at the height of the migration influx into Sweden. So there were a lot of people coming at once, and I was really interested in how people were integrating and like what their stories were like coming here and like trying to fit into society. So I got this grant from the US government to work at the Center for Middle Eastern Studies at Lund University and to kind of tell people's stories or investigate people's stories and try to figure out like what's going on with people like feeling at home in Sweden. And simultaneously I was new, so I was also struggling, so I could really relate to like the things people were saying, and I didn't actually have an answer for them either. I was just kind of it was reinforcing my notions of like the difficulties of integrating and like understanding like Swedish society and like why it's difficult for people to be different in society based on the values of the society and stuff like that. So it was very informative and interesting, but it also was like I was living it also. So that kind of led me to where I am now, because I wanted to like find a solution for this issue, because everybody around me was kind of like, how do I meet Swedes? How do I make new friends? How do I find like someone to play tennis with? Like people were like, I have all this I want to do socially, but I don't know who to do it with or how to, connect with people, and that was my experience as well. So,
and you have developed an app called Panion, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later on. But I'm curious about what aspects of Swedish society you did find difficult.
Yeah, so I moved here from New York City, a place where everybody is competing against each other to try to be more unique and to stand out and to kind of distinguish themselves from everyone else. And I think the culture in the US is to be different and to work hard to get to the top. I mean, part of the reason I left was because it was stressing me out, this kind of like rat race. There was a lot of greed involved. Sweden is the total opposite, and I'm realizing I need something in the middle. I'm actually realizing living in Sweden what the other extreme could be, and that I don't like extremes, that I like middle balance. And like, for example, society really like trains you to not engage in competition at all in Sweden. Everybody's the same, everybody's equal. There's something nice in the equality and the sense of equality, but there's a lot of confusion as well. For example, I'm in a startup accelerator, and people have said, it's hard in Sweden to find like the motivation, people with the motivation and the like people who see themselves succeeding in the big picture. They're like, oh yeah, I'll do this, create this product, and it's good enough if people in Sweden like it. Whereas like someone like I'll come in and be like, no, the whole world's gonna have my app in their pocket, and like I dream so big because that's what my society taught me. In Sweden, you're kind of taught to not stand out, to be humble, to not impose yourself on anyone, to give people their privacy to the point where you don't make eye contact with them in the street even. You give them their space. And to me, that's quite lonely. Like, I want to engage with people. I want to, like, acknowledged on the sidewalk that we're sharing a space even for 1 second while we pass each other. And that's something I really miss from the US, this feeling that you're not alone out in the world, out in your street.
I can only imagine how different that would have been for you and a bit of a culture shock. But you said you came to Sweden at a time when there was a lot of migration happening. I can't even fathom how that would impact people trying to really set up a new life from ground level in a new country. And that environment must make it so much more difficult in some ways.
I think it depends where you are. I think where I live in Malmö, there's a lot of initiatives to try to connect people, and there it's great. I think the problem is more on a societal level, which is like people here are very individualistic. They're very shy. They like keep to themselves because they're trying to respect your boundaries, not because they're not friendly. And there's this like barrier that needs to be broken down. And I think a lot of people here are learning from are shifting because of the immigrants, and I think a lot of the immigrants are shifting because of the Swedes, and people are kind of meeting in the middle, and that's really nice. But it takes a lot of time. At the beginning, you can tell people have first arrived because they're really loud on the train. They're taking up a lot of social space, and then they start to like calm down and find their place, and you look at yourself and over time and see how much you've changed, especially when you go home to visit your family and everybody's just like, when I go home to visit my family, I'm like, wow, I never noticed that like my family just argues all day long. Like they like to argue with each other, and they're like loud and they're so confrontational. And like,
They're dynamic.
yeah. Before this, I lived in the Middle East, and so I know what a lot of people who have come here, what kind of society they've come from, and it's one where you know everyone in the street, where you're laughing, you're smiling, you're like shaking hands with everybody like you see, and you're shouting across the street to your neighbor, and it's like very communal. And it's such the opposite in Sweden. Like you are considered almost like mentally ill or something if you like smile at a stranger. And so it's been hard for me, but it's probably not as hard as it's been for some other people.
How have you found your place in Sweden, and what have you done to integrate and break down those barriers?
I think finding like what your industry is, what you love to do, and just inserting yourself there. I'm an artist, I'm a filmmaker, now I'm an entrepreneur. Like there are big communities for those. And if you go and you say, look, this is what I love to do, this is what I've created, I'm looking to collaborate, or I'm looking to, get to know the scene. I think that has helped a lot. Finding those common interests or those commonalities I've never really had to think so much about the types of people that I would connect with or how to make friends in a different society. Like I don't know, I've lived in countries where everybody is just like trying to get you to come to their home and feed you, and it's taken a lot of more conscious effort. But at the same time, I've met a lot of really great people. And it's because I'm like, okay, well, I'm a filmmaker, so let me find the film community, and let me like, and I was really pushy, to be honest. I pushed a lot. I went to companies, I went to events. I like kind of, I can't imagine if you're someone who's not very good at networking or shy that it's easy. It wasn't easy for me, and I don't know. When I think about like my closest friends in Sweden, they have come from either my like Swedish classes or some sort of like program that I've gotten into, or I've enrolled in or something, because that's the only way really that you meet people, is by like signing up for something. It hasn't been easy, which is why I created my app.
So, at what point did you decide to start working on this app?
My lifestyle changed a lot when I moved here. I was in New York. It was like an hour commute when I was in grad school. Like I suddenly moved to Sweden, and in Malmö you bike everywhere, and suddenly I had this like freedom of being able to go anywhere quickly, and suddenly I had so much free time because I was saving all this time and commuting, and like really efficient when I ran errands and everything. And so I had all this free time, and I kept trying to figure out how to meet people, and going on like Tinder and these dating websites, and like being like, maybe I can find people like friends and people to hang out with here. But I was like stifled by it because I just wanted to like put in a keyword I wanted to put in like anthropology and see everyone on Tinder that liked anthropology because I knew
Must
if
be
they
a
liked
big pool.
anthropology, yeah, right. I knew if they liked anthropology, I would totally get along with them. As I studied anthropology, and the people I've met, we like have this way of like talking about the world that's very similar. And I just started thinking about what if I could do this in this app? Oh, I'd be so happy. And started writing them down, and then being like, there's nothing that's really there for people that move to new places. You can use other tools to try, but I want something that's just specifically catered to me. And so yeah, I just started reading all the reviews on like iTunes and stuff of the apps that were not doing what I wanted to see if there were other people that also felt the same way. And there were a lot of people being like, I just want to meet other couples because we just moved to France or something. How do we do that? Or why does this app like only show pictures? Like, why can't I like talk about interests? Or why can't I run searches? Like all of these things that were what I wanted too. And so I just started to talk to people about my idea. Like, there should be an app like this. Yeah, I wish there was too. And then I was like, I'm going to make it. And then as soon as I declared that, every like few weeks I was getting phone calls from friends being like, is your app ready yet? I really need to use it. Like I'm really struggling. And it was more and more like I just like put the word out that I wanted something like this and I was going to try to create it, and suddenly like everybody was holding me to it.
Tell me a little bit about what this app does. Why would I download Panion and use it when I'm in a new city?
It lets you see all the people around you and all of their interests and all of your overlapping interests. So, imagine you could just go anywhere in the world and you would see everybody, you would know all the people around you and like what their profile of interests, values, experiences were. So we're trying to find the right combination of understanding like what makes people compatible. We don't just want to say, okay, you both like tennis, you're compatible, because that's clearly not true. So part of it we've realized is your experiences in life as well. And so we're trying to find a way to kind of take those into account, like things that you've witnessed, you've experienced, you've done in the world, this kind of thing, as well as things that you're interested in, things you want to do with somebody else. And to find a combination that helps us like pinpoint like the most compatible types of potential friends out there. So you can scroll through profiles and filter for people around you. You can filter by an interest. So you could say like, yeah, I want to find everyone who wants to play, who likes squash, and then I can try to meet someone to play squash next week or something. But you will see all of their interests, and filled in like in a solid color, you see all of your overlaps. So you can kind of see these people have a lot of things in common with me. These people don't have as many things in common with me. And you can, yeah, run searches of combinations of keywords to try to kind of pinpoint like the people that you would want to start meeting.
It's not like Tinder. It's not meant to be a dating app or a shallow, superficial, hey, I'm here for 10 days, let's catch up and hook up kind of app.
Yeah, it's really, in my mind at the beginning, I was like, this is like keyword searchable Tinder with substance, platonic Tinder with substance. It's more efficient because you're not like, I get bored swiping through so many profiles to find that one that I want to like I just want to run a search, I want to narrow it down, I want to. And yeah, like there are a lot of dating apps out there, but there are a lot of people that don't want to date but still want to meet people.
Where is your app in its development? Is it out and available for people to download now?
Yeah, it's available for the iPhone, and we're working on an Android version as well.
I assume the main users currently are in Sweden. Would that be right?
Most of the users are in Sweden and Denmark. We do have some downloaders all over the place, and quite a few in the US as well. But the way that you grow a social app is by concentrating on two specific cities at a time, because it's an app where like you're meeting people in person, so it benefits you when there are people in your area. So we're starting with Europe. Like right now we're starting with Sweden and Denmark, and then kind of growing out to neighboring countries little by little.
Melanie, when you moved to Sweden, did you ever imagine that you might end up developing your own app?
No, I really had no idea. I think I worked for Apple for 3 years, and My brother actually works for Google. So we've been kind of like into technology. I like problem solving, and I like social issues. The technology background kind of seeped in when I was like, I want to solve this social issue. I move a lot, and this whole topic of loneliness has been like in the media a lot lately. And in Sweden, there's like a whole different type of loneliness I never knew existed, probably because of the crazy amount of darkness. I experienced it, and I was just like, wow, I never knew I could feel this type of loneliness, and I never knew I could see this type of loneliness in other people around me, like a loneliness that you can feel when you just stand in front of them. So I wanted to solve a problem, and then I thought, okay, well, this is the way I would solve this problem, and then the technology part just kind of came into it.
What have you learned through this process?
Yeah, I've learned that it's extremely hard to create any sort of customer facing product, especially when you have a small team. I really like marketing and like design, and so I created this big presence for our brand, a website and a lot of marketing material, and I think I kind of created the illusion that we were this really big company. And so then when something technical goes wrong, there's like a lot of expectation that you're just gonna be able to fix it fast, or that you have customer service people 24 hours a day like waiting. And there's many times I've just been sitting there alone answering every person's question or like complaint. And I think a lot of people don't realize like how small many of these startup teams are behind the scenes, how much they want to change, but it takes a while to,
You're still at Amazon guy in the garage stage.
I'm that stage, but people don't know it because I tried to paint this really beautiful picture of us being this trustable brand. It almost backfired because it was like now there's all these expectations and on me, and I'm like doing it the best I can. I'm working like 14 hours a day just trying to catch up, and you get some really angry customers sometimes. You have so many obstacles that no one knows about. And so I urge people when they're angry at a company, maybe if it's not like a big company, an Amazon or like Google, but if they're angry at something, to consider the bigger picture. Errors take some time to fix when you're small, and when you like are trying to get funding, and when you have never done it before.
What are you doing to combat a bit of that? I noticed on the Panion website there's actually a blog. Is that one of the ways you're trying to show a bit of the insider's perspective to your app users?
Yeah, and it's going to be two sides. One is talking about friendships, adult relationships, like what it means to try to rebuild your social circle when you move, what it means to like get rid of toxic relationships in your life. And the other is I want to be transparent about what it's like to have a startup and the process.
Are you as lonely in Sweden today?
No, I don't think so. I think there is this like blanket of loneliness, which is almost part of like the culture in a sense. And maybe it's also the age. I'm in my early 30s, and I think you know yourself really well by now, so you know what you like in a person and you know what you don't. And that makes you lonely because you're more selective in a sense, and it's harder to find the people that really, you want to surround yourself with. So I think it's a yes and no question. I have a lot of people here that I really like, and I feel like I have a lot of friends and people I can rely on. At the same time, I feel like in those like really dark days, no matter how many friends you have, like you still feel this. Maybe it's like a chemical thing, but you feel like kind of isolated and lonely, and people hide in their homes, and it's there.
What would you say are some positives about Sweden, and what advice would you give anyone moving to Sweden?
I really like the life work balance here. I really think that I've learned from Swedish culture and Swedish society how to take a break, how to not work on the weekends if I can, how to like have a boundary between like leaving my work at work and like my home is for me. In Sweden, your home is like this very cherished place. You spend a lot of time decorating it. You make it really cozy. You spend a lot of time in it during the winter. You light candles, being active, like being in nature, but finding this balance between between working hard and playing hard, relaxing. That's one thing. And the other thing is, like, one of my favorite things in Sweden is just the food quality is so high. There's a lot of focus on, like, health and being active and being healthy, and like you can eat really healthy food in a lot of places and a lot of fresh food, and it's not expensive like in the US where you buy organic and it's like triple the price. I can have a really, really comfortable standard of living with very healthy lifestyle here for a lot less money, and like I don't have to search for it. It's everywhere. It's around me. Yeah, I mean, that's really, really nice.
So obviously you're focusing your app right now on Denmark and Sweden, and so any listeners in those countries should definitely download it and give it a whirl. How easy is it to set yourself up on this app?
Yeah, it's free. You download it. Right now it's connected to Facebook. It's just an easy way for us to verify people and make sure they're legit, but we will be adding other forms of logon. So you just connect to your Facebook. We just confirm a bit of information and have you choose some starting keywords to define yourself with, and then you just dive in and you can start running searches and chatting with people, and then hopefully meeting them in person.
Yes, and starting those meaningful connections.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's it for this episode. If you have any questions for Melanie or want to share your own thoughts on living in Sweden, head to expatfocus.com, follow the links to our forums and Facebook groups. We've got more episodes about all aspects of expat life, from moving with pets to handling your taxes, learning languages, educating your kids abroad. You'll find them and more at expatfocus.com/podcast. You can also listen through your favourite podcasting app. And I'll catch you next time.